Have you ever made a big mistake at work? Let me tell you about the first time I made a $15,000 mistake at work. Hey, don't forget to subscribe and please like this video, that way it ends up in other people's feeds. For this story, we're going to go all the way back to when I started at ILM in 1996. In early 1997, I was just a few months in now into the job in the ILM mailroom, running forklifts, moving equipment off of the trucks, taking it to the stages, taking it to the model shop, taking it to the computer guys. Didn't matter what it was. This particular morning was a little rough for me because I had gone overnight to the ER, to the emergency room at hospital with my wife because she was feeling ill. Now, it was very much under control. It wasn't a dangerous situation, but I had to take her into the emergency room. And in the morning, I had one of her parents come, and I headed off to work just to check in, to let them know what was going on, and then I was going to head back to the hospital. Again, I was early in my job, and I felt like just calling in, I was kind of scared to do it, and so I decided to hop in my car and just drive across town. I showed up a little early, no one was there, and there was a truck waiting to unload. Of course, the first thing I want to do is hop on the forklift and pull that load out. So I pull up to the truck, start pulling the load out, and this goes to the stage. So as I turn the forklift to the left and head across the service road to the stage, I look and see all these cones out in the service road. I don't normally see that in the morning. And I see that there's some cables strewn across the road. Now, this is a stage location. This is an active shooting area. I regularly would drive over cables and extension cords and all kinds of stuff and hoses as I would go throughout my daily work at ILM. So I looked up and down this long service road and I didn't see anybody at all. And I said, okay, well, I got to take this to the stage. So I drove across, went over the stage, dropped off the load, came back across, and I was grabbing the second pallet out of the truck. And this gentleman just comes up screaming bloody murder at me. I honestly don't remember exactly what he said. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but he was just screaming, freaking out at me. And I'm like, okay. I'm just saying, okay. I have no idea what he's really saying, but I need to get this truck empty. So I grab the second of the two pallets. I pull it out. I drive over. I drop off the pallet. I come back, park the forklift. My boss is just arriving. I tell him the bad news. I need to take off. My wife's in the emergency room. And he says, get out of here. And I hop in my car and I drive off to the emergency room. What it turned out is that cable that was strung across the service road was an extremely long and extremely expensive fiber optic cable. Now, fiber optic cable is very, very delicate. It's literally made of glass to carry light. And one thing it really can't stand is a forklift running it back and forth over. But here I was doing that unknowing to me. I just thought it was a power cable or some other cable. But what this was the fiber optic cable that was going to be linking the old computer room at ILM to their newly built massive H building complex of server rooms. This is where all the SGI towers were going to be in. This is the kind of stuff you would see in the magazines. This was the real deal data center. And they were finally building this out and they were running this cable across. And it turns out me running across it killed the project and killed the cable. That cable was $15,000. And you have to see it from their perspective. From their perspective, Joe came here early, got on the forklift, ran over the fiber optic cable, got yelled at, hopped in his car, and took off. So I come back later in the day. My wife was fine, like I said. And later in that day, I came back to work saying, hey, checking back in. She's home. We're good. And everyone's looking at me kind of weird. And they say, you need to go talk to Ralph. And Ralph was the guy in charge of the entire facility operation for ILM. I said, okay. And so I go in and they're telling me all this and I'm mortified. I had to unwind the narrative. I had to explain, no. My wife was in the ER. I told that to Dan. I had to head back. And in the end, although it was spoken about at the highest levels, although it postponed the expansion into that computer room by upwards of a month because they had to get another, multi-hundred feet, what it must have been a half a kilometer of length of cable or whatever it was. They had to get that whole thing rebuilt and reprovisioned. I put a whole delay in the project of ILM implementing its new digital technology. And it was all just because I ran over this cable with a forklift. Now, admittedly, it was a mistake, and everyone else agreed that they should have had it better monitored by security. Just throwing out some cones doesn't tell anybody anything. And as a result, I was completely off the hook technically speaking. Nothing was on my record. I was sent on my way saying, don't, look out for what you run over in the future. But I had to live that down. I spent probably the rest of my career at ILM as the guy who ran over the fiber optic cable. I never really could live it down. It was always a joke, but that was fine. It turns out all press is good press. And it really was an innocent mistake. I often tell this story to people who've made a big mistake at work, who've maybe, broke something that cost, $500, or they broke their laptop or something. And the lesson here really is you got to cop to what you do. If you make a mistake, go own it, go report it. Even if it isn't exactly your fault, go and accept the part that is. Hey, maybe I should have stopped and got off there and found out why the cones are out there. I mean, that was a unique thing. I never saw cones out like that before. Something was going on, right? So, I could have taken extra steps. There was certainly some lessons learned there. I was probably a little more careful in the future about running over cables. A friend of mine who's in pipeline development just was telling me how much he tells all his folks that when you get hired, you're going to break the pipeline and take the studio down at some point. It's okay. The trick is to remedy it, never make the same mistake again, cop to it, communicate, take it head on, put on a brave face. You'll get through it just fine. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.